me at the crack of dawn on a recent Monday morning. I was knee-deep in the Pacific Ocean, doing my best not to slip on the very food I was trying to learn about. This is Minute Food. Seaweed is unusual as far as foods go. Not unusual like uncommon. Humans around the world have been eating seaweed for tens of thousands of years. And today, it makes up as much as 10% of the nutritional intake in some places. In other places, eating seaweed is less common. A recent study found that only 36% of American respondents had eaten seaweed. And lots of people who do eat seaweed only eat it in a pretty limited number of ways. So in some ways, seaweed is a kind of unfamiliar food. But that's not what I mean by unusual. I mean that seaweed has some unique culinary properties that make it worth having in your kitchen. Flavor-wise, it is packed with more umami, the stuff that literally makes food delicious, than basically any other food. And texture-wise, it has amazing thickening properties, which can give soups and sauces a silky, velvety texture. My plan was to make a video about these cool properties and how to take advantage of them. And this video will tell you that. But as I was researching, I kept coming back to the question of why seaweed has these particular culinary characteristics. And, like the obsessive nerd that I am, I couldn't let it go. That's how I ended up making a pilgrimage out to the Sonoma coast to traipse through the intertidal zone. Because, as it turns out, seaweed's unique culinary properties stem from its unique biological properties. The class was basically an opportunity to harvest your own seaweed. But I also saw it as a chance to get up close and personal with seaweed where it lives, to help me really understand it as an ingredient. So, along with some other seaweed-curious folks and my amazing husband, who I really should give more credit for not only enduring, but encouraging my Minute Food shenanigans. Anyway, we met up with expert forager Heidi Hermann, our personal guru for the day. Heidi gave us a primer on seaweed, what types we were looking for, how to identify them, and how to harvest them sustainably. Then she set us loose. It was low tide, and seaweed was everywhere, all over the exposed rocks and along the water's edge. Since seaweed gets its energy via photosynthesis, it needs to be close to the surface of the water to get good access to sunlight. So it either needs to grow really tall, like this kelp, or live in shallow water. That's what most seaweeds do. But living in shallow ocean environments means getting regularly exposed by low tides. And this actually turns out to be the key to one of those unusual culinary properties. To withstand these frequent out-of-water experiences, seaweeds produce all sorts of different compounds that bond with water, creating gels that coat the seaweed and prevent it from drying out. When you add seaweed to a soup or stew, these compounds link up with the water and create those very same gels, adding thickness and body to the dish. Phew! One seaweed secret solved. Most of the time, though, seaweed is underwater, living its best life. Except that ocean water is chock full of salt and other stuff. And let's flash back to high school biology for a sec. When stuff dissolved in water is more concentrated on one side of a membrane than the other, water will move across that membrane to equalize the concentration on both sides. Now apply that to seaweed and salty, nutrient-rich ocean water. Water should leave the seaweed cells to dilute all that salt in the surrounding water, which would not be good news for the seaweed. To hold on to their precious water, seaweeds produce and accumulate other solutes to balance the solute concentration inside their cells with the solute concentration of the water they live in. This is the key to seaweed's other culinary superpower. See, many of these solutes are tiny neutral amino acids like glutamate. And glutamate just so happens to be the basic compound responsible for the deliciousness that is umami. That's why seaweed is an umami powerhouse that contributes a ton of savory, meaty, downright delicious flavor to food. Now, finally armed with some answers, I could focus on harvesting the stuff. Everything out there was edible. Almost all seaweeds are safe to eat, although some definitely taste better than others. So seaweed is a really fun food to forage for. You just have to make sure you know the harvesting rules where you are, and that you harvest in a way that enables the seaweed to keep growing. So if you're a beginner, a seaweed class like the one I went on is a great way to get started. After a few hours, we had bags and bags and bags of nori, kombu, and a seaweed that I've never had before, which I called caterpillar seaweed, but is actually called Sister Sarah. But the hard work wasn't over, because seaweed doesn't last long out of water. Although those anti-drying out compounds do protect seaweed for a while, its cell walls are so permeable that within 24 hours or so, fresh seaweed isn't so fresh anymore. That's why the stuff you see sitting on the beach is usually so gross and stinky. So, armed with Heidi's helpful instructions about how to process our seaweed, I spent the next several hours rinsing and drying and drying and drying, and also pickling in order to preserve it all. I ended up with a ton of gorgeous, local, hand-harvested seaweed. You don't have to go the DIY route, though. Asian markets are a great place to find all sorts of dried seaweeds. And there are also lots of online sources of sustainable, high-quality seaweed products. But then, what do you do with it? You can make beautiful seaweed-focused dishes like this wakame salad that my family loves. But seaweed doesn't have to be the star. In fact, seaweed is probably more useful in the kitchen in more minor roles. Think of those unique qualities, and basically you can use seaweed whenever you want to boost either one. Like, try adding a sprinkle of seaweed to anything, really, for extra umami-liciousness. Seaweed butter is an easy, tasty option, and my kids love mixing up seaweed flakes with sesame seeds, salt, and other stuff as an extra flavoring. Thin, delicate seaweeds like nori are the best choice for this. But again, you don't have to DIY this. There are tons of really good pre-made versions available. Look for 𝗂𝗏𝗃𝗃 or seaweed salt. You can also try using dried seaweed the next time you're making, say, some stock. Not only will it donate tons of umami flavor, it'll also create those thickening gels, adding body as the stock cooks. This is an especially great tip for vegetarian stocks, because it can help you get that really nice glossy texture that gelatin-rich bones normally achieve in a meat stock. Kombu is a great seaweed for this. You can just toss in the whole strip, but breaking it up or grinding it before you use it increases its texturizing power even more. Seaweed is such a good natural thickener that tons of different products include compounds derived from seaweed. So even if you don't know it, you probably regularly eat seaweed, or at least an extracted or isolated form of it. But it's worth trying to use seaweed more consciously in order to take advantage of those unique properties. In other words, it should be a more usual ingredient in the kitchen, exactly because of how unusual it is. By the way, do you know what's also unusual? How amazing our brand new merch looks. I can't get over our non-stick Pan Fan Gang t-shirt and our I got these guns from lifting my cast iron pan shirt. Oh, and I can't forget how cute our little brassica stickers are. Precious little balls of joy. You can get yours right now at dftba.com/minutefood. And remember, if you support us on Patreon or you're a YouTube member, you'll get 20% off everything with your exclusive discount code. On top of everything else you already get when you support us, that is. In any case, run to dftba.com/minutefood and get your gorgeous Minute Food merch right now.